everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead video. So in this one here, I want to talk about something that I think is actually going to really excite the fan base, and it's something that I do imagine we're probably going to see in the first trailer for Dead City. Now, in terms of when we're going to see the actual first footage for that, it's probably going to be a while, right? Like, I think in the next month or so, or maybe at Comic-Con, I'm not entirely sure. It depends on when Daryl Dixon Season 2 comes out. They did say this summer, but, a release date still hasn't been announced yet. I do expect some news on that very soon, but I do think after Daryl Dixon is over, we're likely going to be getting a teaser trailer, and then we have to sort of wait for the official trailer. But I do think in that trailer, we are going to see basically what has sort of been talked about online right now, and that is that Negan and Lucille seem to be getting reunited, or at least it's not the actual Lucille, obviously, it is a different Lucille, but he does have a bat with barbed wire on it, and it looks like season 2 is going to get very interesting here. So before we go any further, obviously make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. Now, I am going to be doing some videos on Deadpool versus Wolverine. There's also The Boys Season 4, which is coming out very soon. House of the Dragon Season 2 as well. I'm definitely very excited for that. But the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because there's a lot of articles being written about it. I saw this here from Screen Rant, and I just found it very interesting, just because obviously they are filming right now, and usually when it comes to stuff like that, I won't talk about anything, in terms of like spoilers or anything like that. That's why I'm not going to show any sort of like, images that were taken on set and all that, because I think that's way too spoilery. This is more just focused on what the article had to say and stuff. And, I think when it comes to stuff like this, it's all right to talk about, just because, again, there's articles being written about it and whatnot, and this isn't that big of a spoiler, but if anything, it's going to excite a lot of people to watch season 2 of Dead City. And I've been seeing some people talk about Dead City and saying that, they're not the most excited about the show because of certain things. I do think that, the first season of the show, was it the most exciting, story? I would say no. I mean, it definitely was an introduction story, I do think. Like, an introduction to this new world here, an introduction to, I guess this new world of The Walking Dead, post the original series. Because after the original series, everyone was wondering, well, what is next and all of that. And seeing Dead City and how amazing it looked and stuff, I think a lot of people were very excited about all the spinoffs. And Daryl Dixon, just looked that much better than The Ones Who Live as well. Looked amazing. And so I think that people now look back at all the spinoffs and are just like, well, obviously Dead City was probably everyone's least favorite for the most part. I know a lot of people do like Dead City more than most of the shows, but I think overall, I think it is like the least favorite. And I think the reason is because they need to come up with a bigger story and just a more exciting story, because season 1 really was, I feel like the focus for that season was more just how do you get Maggie and Negan together, right? How do you introduce this new story and have those two characters as leads? Because that is a very difficult thing to do, right? Like, that was sort of the whole thing when they first announced the spinoff, was like, well, how does this make any sense, right? Like, how does it make sense to have these two characters together when those two characters just really do not like each other, right? And obviously now we get why, we saw why, right? Like, Herschel, what was the reason Maggie needed Negan's help? Because Herschel was taken away by the Croat, and the Croat did that because he was trying to get Negan, to him. And he knew that if he did that, Maggie would probably get Negan's help, because literally that's what the Croat said, right? So Maggie literally brought Negan to the Croat, and so I think that's the perfect setup for a really amazing story here. And I think that's what those 6 episodes were, right? And I think we got to know a lot of newer characters, really amazing characters, and I'm excited to see where the story's going to go here for season 2, because I think for season 2, they can really get into some stuff with the Croat and the Dama. The new character, I don't remember what his name was, but he is being played by Kim Coates, and really amazing actor. I'm so excited. He's going to be the lead villain here. And remember, they did confirm that Dead City Season 2 is going to be 8 episodes. Well, AMC didn't confirm it, but Kim Coates did say in an interview, he was like, well, there's going to be 8 episodes, lead villain, this and that. So to me, that's definitely the right choice to make. And I think that Daryl Dixon Season 2 is going to be very exciting for so many reasons. Like, the variant walkers are going to get crazier. Daryl and Carol's reunion, maybe we'll see Rick show up. And even if we don't, there's going to be a lot of mentions. Daryl's going to find out that he did make it back. There's a lot of stuff to that show, and I'm really excited to see how that ends and how it sets up a season 3. But The Walking Dead Dead City Season 2 is going to feel, I feel like, like traditional Walking Dead, where we have longer episodes. And I think the story is going to get even just crazier in terms of, what world they're going to be setting up here in New York City. And Negan, remember, he's going to be the leader here in terms of what the Dama wants to actually do. And we don't know the reasonings behind why she wants to do what she's doing. As of now, we view her as the villain. But what if she's not the villain? And Kim Coates, he's supposed to be the villain. Well, why is Negan and the Dama villains and, Kim Coates' character also villains? Like, who's the real villain? Or maybe Kim Coates is working, his character is working with Negan. But Maggie and, you have the Marshal and everyone else at New Babylon, how are they viewed, right? And if you remember season 1, the big, theme of that season was, everything, that we sort of believe in or this and that, there's a gray area for everything. Everyone's sort of done bad things. There's no real villains. And I think that was more of a, obviously just talking about Negan in general and a lot of beliefs that Maggie has as well, and I think that, yeah, a lot of these characters have done really horrible things, but people like to view Negan as the villain when really at this point, I don't think he is at all. He really is not at all. And so I just wonder if season 2 is going to continue that theme with a lot of these other characters. But I just think that this, this whole storyline here with New York City is going to get even bigger. And I am very excited about the fact that it is 8 episodes, because 6 episodes, you can't get into it a lot, right? In terms of how much I want them to expand a lot of the New York, city storyline and get into a lot of the other groups that are there and creating this whole huge world there, right? That could be, obviously some sort of connection to eventually bringing Rick and Michonne back around. You need a couple of extra episodes, right? And so I'm very excited for the fact that they're actually doing that. They are going to be doing that. If this was just 6 episodes, I would be all right, the first 3 episodes, we're just going to learn more about the villains, learn more about what Negan's up to and stuff in New York City. And then the last 3, we're going to get this final showdown, and then it's going to end in some way. It would feel too quick, right? It was just never going to be the right amount of episodes. And I think that's how everyone's felt about the previous, seasons of these shows. And so 8 episodes, I think, is so perfect for this story. And I honestly, increase it to 10 if you can. If that's a possibility in the future, do that, because I think a world like this needs to be lived in a lot more, and I think that's why people really, really liked these spinoffs is because, they love to live in this world, but it's just, that the rushing of the story and stuff is definitely a big concern here. And so far for Dead City season 2, though, obviously they're giving us 8 episodes. That's really incredible here. And to have Negan with Lucille, I think is something that is going to be a very interesting aspect to all of this here, because now he has Lucille back again, right? And how is that going to play a role in the story? Obviously, I don't know anything in terms of filming and all that. I just, I'm reading this article and whatever. And I've seen some stuff posted obviously online, on Twitter or X or whatever. But my prediction is that the Croat is likely going to be giving Negan Lucille. I think it makes sense story-wise because the Croat is trying to basically recreate the saviors in some sense, right? And they want Negan to lead, and maybe in that very first episode, maybe he's having a hard time doing that. Maybe some people don't necessarily believe him, but when Negan gets that bat, when he has Lucille and just his, who he can be. Obviously, we saw in season 1, we saw what he can do, right? Maggie saw it. Really amazing scene. Honestly, one of my favorite scenes. Honestly, that scene with Negan where he's telling that knock knock joke, that's probably one of my favorite scenes in general. Top 3 favorite scene, maybe of all the spinoffs. And I'm including the ones who live in that. That was a really, really amazing scene. And so if we're going to be getting more of that, Negan having Lucille, having to demonstrate to people why he is who he is, why he should be feared, and why you should follow him sort of thing. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be so much fun. And you get someone like Kim Coates there who maybe, doesn't like the fact that, Negan is doing this here and has some issues with what the Dama is doing. And then there's New Babylon, and then there's Maggie. Imagine Maggie's reaction to the fact that, oh, Negan has his leather jacket, he has Lucille back, and now he's the leader of this huge group here in New York City that's probably going to be doing a lot worse, in terms of just, what they can actually do to people than what the saviors did years ago. To Maggie, she's going to be all right, we need to try and stop him, right? And I wonder if that is where they go with the story. There's also Herschel, the actor talked about Herschel going down a darker path. What if he joins the Dama? What if he joins Negan's group, or maybe joins Kim Coates' group? there could be some really, really interesting, crazy stuff that happens here that's going to really change a lot of, the Walking Dead universe a lot. And I just wonder how does this connect with a lot of things? And again, that's why I think Dead City season 2 is going to be really phenomenal. Like, people complain about season 1, sure. And I feel like, honestly, if you don't like The Walking Dead Dead City, it really must just be because you don't like Negan as a character. Maybe there's other issues. I mean, obviously that could always be a thing, but I feel like if you never really liked Negan as a character, or you never really liked that whole Maggie versus Negan story, then Dead City might be one of the shows that maybe you're okay with watching. You can say, well, it's an all right show, but maybe you're not going to be the most excited about it, right? Which I totally get. Like, if you're not interested in a storyline like that, then I totally get it, right? Because a lot of people just love Rick and Michonne. A lot of people just love Daryl and Carol. For me personally, I honestly like all of the characters. Like, I do kind of like Rick as a character overall, though I will say, because of The Ones Who Live and the way it ended, it definitely has, affected my sort of overall view of Rick Grimes in a sense, just because, I mean, he's my favorite character, definitely, like, overall. But just because of the way it ended, I'm like, I don't know, it makes Daryl more exciting as a character, honestly. It just makes his story a lot more interesting. Like, when you really look at what The Ones Who Live was, it was honestly really amazing to see all of that. But I just really liked what Daryl Dixon did with Daryl, right? Like, if you just look at that season, literally Daryl saw his grandfather's grave. They really went in depth with Daryl. Like, they really did. They explored that character a lot. And I just think that they did a better job with Daryl in that show. And the future also seems very exciting with the character, whereas with Rick Grimes, I don't want to say it feels like we're at the end with Rick Grimes, because obviously there's still more story to tell, but it definitely feels like we're in the later half of that character's story right now. And again, it was just because of how it ended. I mean, obviously things could totally change, and my opinion on things like this change a lot. Like, I'll like Rick sometimes, and then I'll like Daryl, and then I'll like Negan for a while. Like, those three characters I would say are probably my favorite characters of all time, like, on the show. It's just that it goes back and forth quite a bit, depending on where their stories are, right? And I think right now, Daryl's is probably the most exciting because of where he's at. Rick's was the most exciting for a while because of, I mean, we had no idea where he was, and it was just like, so many questions on this and that. But now that we got some of those answers, I think that right now, Daryl is just, he's a lot more interesting, I would say, as a character right now, because, I mean, variant walkers and all of that, the stuff that he's going to be going through in France, Carol's going there. But we'll see with Negan, right? I think Negan getting Lucille back, obviously it's a different bat and all of that, but it's going to be interesting to see how a lot of this plays out. And again, this is really exciting. The whole world they're building up here. Now imagine if Dwight shows up at the end. Imagine if in that finale of season 2, Dwight shows up, and that's a tease for season 3. That's going to make this show, honestly, probably one of the most exciting shows, because then you have this whole world built up, right? Like, you have Negan out there with Lucille again and his jacket going up against Kim Coates' character. You have, the Croat and the Dama, that whole storyline there. What if Herschel joins, Kim Coates' character's group, right? Or Maggie, like, how is she going to feel about this? And then Dwight shows up after. And there's just like this huge storyline going on in New York City, and now Dwight has showed up. Honestly, like, this show could get really, really good. Like, really, really good. So I'm very, very excited for Dead City. There's a lot of opportunity with this show. I would say, honestly, there's a lot of opportunity with this show, just sort of in general, because with Daryl Dixon, like, he's in France. So kind of hard to do a lot of things with that character, right? Like, he's so far away. You would need characters to travel over there. Kind of hard to do that. Like, you can't keep doing that all the time, right? So with Dead City, that's where you can have a lot of characters show up randomly. So I'm very interested in that. And like, that's the thing too, there could be other characters from The Walking Dead that do show up in the show, right? Like, what about Aaron or Eugene or Ezekiel, right? Like, there could actually be other characters that do show up here. And there could be other flashbacks, because I literally just never predicted Gabriel to show up at all in The Ones Who Lived. Like, that really came out of nowhere. But looking back at it, it does actually make sense. It makes perfect sense because it was Jadis's final episode, like, just to sort of bookend that story in that sense, right? Like, really, really amazing. But anyways, I'm gonna leave it here. Definitely post your thoughts down below on Dead City season 2. What are your thoughts on Negan getting Lucille again? And just post some general predictions that you have for the show, or I guess its second season. Hope you guys all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.